The world was not a cradle, it was a colossal, unforgiving crucible. Every heartbeat was a calculated risk, every rising sun a signal for the next desperate battle. The cold, wet earth seeped into their very bones, driven by the simple, brutal equation of existence. Hunger stalks the weak, and weakness invites the predator. They stepped out of the shadow of the trees, a small, vulnerable clan, knowing that the slightest cough, the wrong smell on the wind, could mean instant, violent extinction. The terrifying majesty of nature was their judge, jury, and executioner. This crushing, unceasing pressure did not break them. Instead, it forged the most powerful weapon in the history of life, the capacity to cooperate and the relentless will to think. Before us lay a world defined by its lethal extremes. The Pleistocene epoch was a brutal carousel of ice ages and intense heat, where the climate itself was a predator. Our ancestors, the early hominids, were not the kings of this domain. They were merely another, relatively soft-skinned species clinging to the edges of survival. There were no stone walls or stock pantries. Shelter was a precarious cave or a hastily constructed brush hut. They were a species constantly on the move, chasing the receding edges of ice or the faint promise of water. Their only certainty, the omnipresent danger that stalked the brushland. Their bodies were frail compared to the saber-toothed cats. Their speed was nothing against the charge of a woolly rhinoceros. To exist was to be perpetually outnumbered, outclassed, and exposed. The dual-action economy of hunting and gathering was the mechanism that kept the human light flickering. Gathering was the silent, steady backbone of life, the constant sustenance provided primarily by the clan's women and elders. It demanded a profound, intimate knowledge of the land, which root was poison, which berry offered life, where the season's nuts would fall. This quiet, constant intake was the lifeline. Hunting, however, was high-stakes warfare. It was a terrifying gamble of energy and risk. A hunt was not a sprint, but a marathon of tracking, patience, and silent communication. Armed with nothing but sharpened wood and stone, they pursued animals many times their size. The objective was not just a kill, but the massive caloric reward that would feed the entire group for days, pushing the shadow of starvation back into the wilderness. It was the birth of true collective enterprise. Every encounter with a major carnivore or herbivore was a battle for the species' future. The odds were never in their favor. They faced the cave lion, a creature far larger than its modern counterpart, and the giant, short-faced bear, a true apex horror. Survival demanded not brute force, but unparalleled strategic ingenuity. It was a group of perhaps a dozen humans, relying on distraction, terrain, and the pinpoint accuracy of a thrown spear. Imagine the deafening sound of a mammoth charge, the ground shaking, the air thick with dust and primal fear. It was in these moments that humanity transcended its physical limitations. The cooperation was flawless, the coordination instantaneous. A single mistake meant not just the death of an individual, but potentially the devastating loss of key members of the tribe, weakening the whole and inviting collapse. And then came fire. It was the moment humanity drew a defiant line in the sand. Fire was more than warmth against the killing cold. It was the first technological fortress, a perimeter of light that terrified the shadows and the beast within them. It was the first time they truly controlled a natural element. More critically, fire cooked their food. This simple act unlocked vital nutrients, making tough meat and starch easier to digest, which directly fueled the most extraordinary organ in the natural world, the human brain. A bigger brain required more energy, and fire provided it. It lengthened the day, allowing for tool-making and storytelling under its protective glow. Fire wasn't just a discovery, it was the catalyst that accelerated human evolution itself. In this relentless world, solitude was suicide. The tribe was the singular, essential unit of survival. The success of the group was not dependent on the strongest hunter, but on the weakest. For a cohesive unit meant shared burdens and specialized roles. The old carried the precious, non-renewable resource of wisdom. Where to find water during a drought, how to track a wounded animal, the memory of past disasters. The young brought the pure strength. This tribal unity led to altruism, empathy, and early medicine. When a hunter broke a leg, the tribe did not abandon him. They cared for him, knowing that the shared knowledge of his life was more valuable than the immediate cost of his recovery. This social pact, sealed in the safety of their communal gatherings, became the foundational blueprint for all future civilization. The human journey can be told in the language of stone. The first deliberate strike of one rock against another, creating a razor-sharp edge, was a moment more profound than any modern invention. From the simple Oldowan chopper to the sophisticated Solitrean blade, tools were the externalized intelligence of the human mind. They bridged the physical gap between frail flesh and powerful prey. But the tools were useless without the master application of strategy. This was the birth of abstract thought, mapping migration routes, planning a coordinated ambush that exploited the weaknesses of their prey, and inventing the first projectile weapons, lances, atlatls, and bows. They were physically inferior, but strategically dominant. They learned to kill not with strength, but with geometry and foresight, turning the world into a massive, solvable problem. For hundreds of thousands of years, our lineage teetered constantly on the edge of the abyss. Disease, famine, catastrophic climate shifts, and competition with other hominid species like the Neanderthals, these forces created brutal population bottlenecks. At certain points in prehistory, the entire global population of modern humans may have dwindled to mere thousands. They were a tiny, fragile ember in the vast, indifferent darkness of the planet. Their perseverance is the greatest story ever told. They crossed oceans of ice into new continents, endured volcanic winters, and adapted to every conceivable environment, from the Arctic Circle to the steaming jungle. The ultimate human victory was simply their refusal to vanish. They fought for every single generation, and in that protracted, desperate struggle, they ensured the survival of one small, thinking species. Look at us now. We live in a world of skyscrapers, satellites, and instantaneous global communication. Yet everything we are, everything we have built, is a direct, inherited echo of that prehistoric struggle. The grit to solve complex problems, the cooperation that builds our cities, the unyielding curiosity that drives us to space, these are not acquired traits. They are the genetic imprints of the savannah. We survived because we collaborated. We dominated because we innovated. The fears of the cold, the hunger, the roar of the beast, they have been internalized and transformed into our endless drive for comfort and progress. The blood of the first hunters, the wisdom of the first gatherers, still pulses within us. The struggle was brutal, but the result was humanity. And the greatest testament to their fight is the world we stand in today.